Hello there, it's Jay here from Jay's Vintage Junk, and today, well, I got a package in the mail, and my capacitor kit for the Amiga 600 has arrived from Amiga Kit. Now, I must admit, I've never actually ordered a capacitor kit like this for an Amiga. I've always just ordered the capacitors I've needed and done it myself. But I've seen a few other YouTubers that I watch have used Amiga Kit stuff, and I thought it was dirt cheap. It was I think it was about £7 delivered or something like that. It wasn't bad at all. I couldn't really buy the capacitors separately for much different, and so I thought I'd give it a go so we can have a look how easy it is. But you've got everything you need in here to do the Amiga 600 apparently. I've not even opened it up yet, so let's have a quick look what we get. In fact, I'll get you zoomed down on the oops, here we go, in you go. Right, let's have a quick look what we get in the packet. Come on, there we go. Try not to rip the packet because they're useful, these seal bags. Got a bit of tape off there. Right, let's see what we've got in the packet. So I find that's quite nice. You get a little sticker to go on the bottom of the case. Recap using genuine capacitor kit from Amiga Kit, a date and by who. So that's quite decent. That. There's the Amiga Kit capacitor kit, and then we have a list. So we have C4, which obviously is marked. I presume these are all marked. Let's open this up. Right. So we do have a few through-hole capacitors, which obviously, yeah, we do have them in the 600, so we don't need to worry about them. Here we go. So we've got C. We have H, we have E, and we have D. So C4, yep, we've got 4 of them. D4, yep, 4 of them. E5, yep, we've got 5 of them. F2, which ones are they? C237 and C307. So it's one of them two, and then we've got the other 2 more through holes, and then we've got H2, which is the other surface mount. So we've got a full kit, and it tells us basically the quantities of the capacitor. It doesn't actually give us the value of the capacitor, but you don't really need to know that because it gives you the location. So we've got the through hole ones, which are F, which is so we don't know until we look in the computer, but which one? What value are these? Oh, they're 470 UFs. So got 2 470 UFs and 2000 UFs. So it's either going to be F or G for them. H, C2. Right, we might as well just get on with this. But yeah, we've got everything we need there. And like I said, basically whatever it is, like the C, you mark on there, and it tells you which locations they are. So we've got 4 capacitors which are marked C, and they go in C235, C236, C239, and C409. So it's quite easy to figure out which capacitor goes where. So yeah, I'm quite pleased with that. Like I say, it saved me hunting out all the capacitors individually, and I've not got a lot of surface mount capacitors in stock, and these are decent. You know, I can't remember if it said they were Panasonic. I think they said they were Panasonic. They are decent brand capacitors. You know, they're not some no brand make capacitor. I can't see a make on them. Can't see a make on them. Can't see a make on them either. But it did assure you that they were decent brand. Anyway, we might as well get on with this, haven't we? So first things first, let's get you up on the Amiga. We're going to have to get this thing stripped down before we can do anything else at all. So first things first, let's put the anti-static on and we'll get the Amiga stripped down. I have got some plans for this Amiga. I want to go on a bit of an upgrade path with it. In fact, I've just been trial fitting a few bits. Let me get that out of the way. I've already disconnected the keyboard connector because you know that can be a bit of a faff. And while I was up in the attic looking for something else, I found a hard drive cradle. It might be the one out of my no, I don't think it is the one out of my 1200. I think it's one that I just got randomly in a box of Amiga bits actually. But I did get a hard drive cradle that'll fit this, a 600. I also have this kicking about, which is your basically compact flash to IDE adapter, but it's a really nice simple flat basic one. I've had it lying around for donkey's years. Somewhere I should have the mini IDE cable to connect that up. That's the only thing I'm missing at the moment, but we do have a solid state hard drive solution that was going to be going in that, but that'll be a future video anyway. It's got a 512 meg compact flash card in it, and quite frankly I think that's going to be big enough. I know people, you know, they put massive hard drives in these things, but for the software and everything I'm going to be wanting to run on it, I think half a gig is going to be absolutely fine. And more importantly, I had it already, it's not cost me anything. Right, so we'll take that out. Like I said, we're just playing with them to see whether they'd fit. I'm going to have to do something so this sits a bit higher and further back like that if we've got any chance of actually plugging the IDE cables in. But I think that should work. We'll put that out of the way for now and we'll get the cradle out. I think that cradle might be a little bit bent, but we can bend that back into shape. Right, next thing, we've got to pull my Gotek out of here. Let's get this out of the case. And one of the other modifications I'm looking into doing, as well as putting the hard drive in here, if I can, it's one of these modifications that is very common on the older 500 and 500 plus Amiga 1200. Not Amiga 1200, sorry, Amiga 1500, Amiga 2000. Is to put a DFO, DF0 change switch. So basically your external drive can become the DFO and your internal drive becomes DF1. The problem on the 600 and 1200 is, to do it, I think you lift one of the CIAs and you fiddle about with a couple of pins on one of the CIAs. Obviously on the 600 and the 1200 it's all surface mount. Now I've watched a video. I think it was Miss Mad Lemon watching a guy in Ireland at a Amiga convention doing the mod to a 600. Now it's not a tutorial or anything. It's just her filming this guy actually do this mod to a 600, and it doesn't quite show everything. But I think it shows enough information for me to figure out exactly how he did it, and actually do the mod to this 600. Basically, because this is my everyday 600. This is actually the Amiga that I use more than any other Amiga that I've got, and I've got quite a few Amigas. Basically because of its size, and it plays everything I really want to play, you know, long term on it. So I've never even bothered with the hard drive. I've just, since I made it my main Amiga, playing Amiga, the only thing I've done is put that Gotek in it. And it's like I say, it's a ratty old 600. It's never ever been recapped. That's why we're doing it now, and it deserves a bit of a pimp up, basically. But yeah, the idea being that I've got an external 3.5-inch floppy drive which I want to be able to use with this, so I can actually play some of my disc games. So the plan is to, if I can figure it all out properly, is basically fit a switch to the back which will swap between the Gotek and the external floppy drive, which one's the boot drive, which one's actually set up as DF0. Now it involves taking a resistor off the board, soldering some wires in. You can either use the pads that the resistor came off, which is a bit on the dodgy side, or you can go onto the back of the board and there's a couple of solder points you can solder to pick the first two up. The other thing you have to do is modify the drive cable and then fit like a crossover switch which will just fit in the back there somewhere. This is one Amiga that I'm not bothered about modifying the case on it because it's already been hacked to fit a, well, before I put that Gotek in there, it had already been hacked by a previous owner to put a modified PC floppy drive in, so like I say, I'm not mithered about fitting extra switches or holes or anything in this case. This Amiga is one that is, I don't mind hacking and modifying. But yeah, that's the initial plan. So we'll have a switch on the back which will swap between the internal Gotek and an external floppy drive, which is the boot drive, so then I can play disc games on it. I'm also planning to do a ROM mod on it, so it can boot Kickstart 1.3. Because a few of the very old games that I've got, yeah, I've got a boot disc you can stick in, and that makes it boot to 1.3, and I can put the image of that on a Gotek drive image and do it that way. But again, it'd be nice just to have a switch on the back so I can just flick it over and boot it as a 1.3 machine, flick it back and it can boot as the 2.4 I think this runs, something like that. Anyway, right, let's carry on disassembling. So we'll disconnect the power to the floppy drive. Come on, off you come. That's a bit stiff. There we go, it comes off. We'll disconnect the floppy drive cable and we can get the Gotek out of the way. That can go out of harm's way for now. Right, then we need to get the actual board out of the case. Let's have a look, see how this is screwed in. Let's put that up there. So we need, in fact, let's pinch the top off the Q-tips because we need something to retain all the screws together so we don't lose any. There might have just been one screw holding the entire board in this 600. So it had a hard life before I got hold of it. Someone had already well loved it. Come on, what's holding it in now? It just held on by the... I want to risk flexing it to try and get the board out. Ah, there we are. We just need that little bit of a gentle persuasion, I think. Come on, out you come. There we go. Right, we can get the board out of the case. We'll put the case to one side. I mean, it's a shame it got hacked, that, because it's a nice white case. It's not yellowed at all. It's just it's been chopped up to originally fit a PC floppy drive in there. Right, now we actually still have the back shielding on this, so we better get rid of that. I still can't find my nut spinner for these, so we'll have to use the old pliers. Right. So unscrew these. And I'll actually show a few videos back when I was last playing with this, and I mentioned about some I don't know whether the chokes or what, but round here, which look, I mean, this is factory. This is factory dodginess I'm going to show you in a minute. I don't know what it is about me getting old computers and then them having some really dodgy factory work. Do you remember? I think it was one of my BBCs where there's a chip that's basically rising up out of the board as though it wants to escape from the board. And it's been like that since, you know, since it was flowed in the factory. But this has got something similar on it. So the quality control Commodore by this point must have been pretty abysmal. I don't know why the Amiga 600 is so, disliked by a lot of collectors, because it really is quite a nice little system, especially if you don't have a lot of room and you're not a power user or a power player with the Amiga. Well, the other thing I did pick up, we'll have to have a look at it when it arrives. I've got a 1 meg upgrade coming for this, so we can take it up to 2 meg chip RAM. And again, that were only cheap. I think I paid 15 quid for it. And it's also got a real-time clock on it. So, which will be nice seeing it. So we were booting from a hard drive, we can boot into Workbench. It will actually have a working real-time clock. But it uses a little CR23 battery. A little coin cell. We've not got anything nasty to leak and corrode all over it. And it is apparently in working order. It's just been, just second hand, picked up off eBay. But we'll have a look at that when that arrives. I think I do actually have a 1 meg upgrade in one of my other 600s that's up in the attic. But I wasn't going to pinch that for this because I think that one's already got a hard drive in it. So when I do get round to refurbing that system, I'll probably retain a hard drive in it, and it'd be nice having the extra meg of RAM. So like I say, they were only 15 quid. I thought I'd pick myself another one up for going in this one. It does open the possibility of WHD load as well. That's something I've never really played with, but I suppose it wouldn't be bad to have a play with that on this 600. See if it is viable on it anyway. If not, then when I finally get my fancy Amiga 1200 back down out of its box in the attic, we'll play with it on that. That's my all singing, all dancing 1200 with accelerator and everything. Right, move that out of the way. I think we should be ready to release from the bottom shield. Come on, out you come. Why won't you release? I'm getting caught on little tabs. What's the dilemma? Do I put it back in the shielding when I've repaired it, or do we forgo the shielding? Oh, hang on. There's a screw there, that's why it's not coming out. I missed him. Oh, and it's a tight screw as well. Come on. There we go. That was a tight one. Right, so we'll get that out of there. Right, let's see now. There we go. That's all that was holding it. Right, I'll get the board down. Got the tiniest, weeniest bit of corrosion, if you can see in that. So you can make that out in that back corner there, which we'll address. We'll deal with that before, if we are going to reuse the shielding and put it back in. I suppose it does protect the board somewhat. We'll deal with that corrosion before we do that. But yeah, that's it. We've got the board out. Could do with just defluffing. It's a bit manky up here. Yeah. There's a lot of fluff on the board, but apart from that, it doesn't look too terrible. We'll have a quick, I'll get you zoomed in. We can have a proper quick squiz around the board before we really get into it. So let's let me zoom you. Oops, that's all. That's out. You want in? Right. Let's have a proper look at this board. Oops, again, sorry. Now, I think this is where most of the actual really nasty nasty corrosion is basically around this area here. In fact, I've got my doubts whether the IDE section would actually work at all on this one. Basically, from what I can see, this, they've all been leaking. They're probably actually fine, but they're going to change them anyway. This is what I mean about these components. Look, can you see the state of them? You see how they're all cranked over like that? Now that's from factory. That's, you know, that's not someone's snide rework or anything. That's when it's gone through a wave solder machine and they've not seated properly and they've just soldered in place like that. I mean, it's obviously it's worked from the factory like that, but that's yeah, good quality control there, Commodore. But anyway, right, so we've got that area definitely to attend to. That's going to be where we have our most issues as well, because like I say, I can see a lot of like the horrible yucky deposits all around them capacitors. The capacitors on the rest of the board actually don't look bad at all. Let's have a quick look at the audio. Now these are the ones that are absolutely horrible to replace. Oops, you can't see what I'm looking at here. Let me get you over there. Right. These two capacitors, that one there and that one there, are the ones that are absolutely horrible to replace, because if you can see where the keyboard connector is, I might even end up taking the keyboard connector off, changing them caps and then putting the keyboard connector back on. I might even end up taking the two audio connectors back off there and doing them. Two are really horrible to do, and I can see right away that they're manky. They are really green and horrible, the solder points on them. And the worst of that is, it's not a solder point that side and a solder point that side. You should think, yeah, that might be doable. There's a solder point basically touching that keyboard connector on that side, and the other one is on that side next to that audio connector there. So those two are a pain in the whatnot to do. All the rest of the capacitors on here actually aren't really going to be that much of a mare. They all look relatively clean as well. I think there's... Let me get you around so you can see what I'm seeing. That one looks fine. These two there are just starting to look a little bit iffy around them. So like I said, we've probably got a little bit of leakage going on there. Nowhere near as much as we've got on the other side. But what I might do, the first thing I might do is just go and make myself a coffee before I start this process. So I think I'll probably just pause the video and go and make myself a cup of coffee. And then when I come back, well, I think what we'll start with is we'll start with these three surface mount round here, because that one doesn't look corroded at all. There seems to be a little bit of corrosion around those two. And then we'll work this way along the board. So what we're going to do, we're going to start here where there's the least corrosion, and we'll work that way along the board. We'll tackle that horrible area down this side here, and then we'll work our way back, and we'll do the ones round there last, because I know they're going to be the ones that are going to be an absolute pain in the whatnot to do. Right, so I'm just going to go and make myself a coffee, and then we'll be right back, and we can start the fun. So back in a sec. Okay, we're back, and I've got my coffee. I'm going to try something. I've got another camera set up, so I'm going to see whether I can just perhaps have two camera angles on this, and perhaps get you a better shot of what I'm actually doing. But I'm not sure how well it's going to work, so we'll just have to see. I'm going to start with, as I mentioned before, with these three capacitors there, and there, basically. What we'll do is we've got the hot air on. I'll get my soldering iron switched on and being ready to warm up as well. I might as well get the, it's going to make a little bit of noise unfortunately, but I might as well get the desoldering station up and running as well, because we will need that to tackle all the through hole stuff. And I think I probably am going, yeah, I am going to have to take these off to do them two capacitors there. The really, and I have seen it done like this, the really nasty way of doing it is to twist them capacitors off, break them off the board, clean the board up, and then use through-hole components with the legs bent and solder them in place, and then just bend them flat behind the keyboard connector. I have seen it done like that, but I want to do this properly, and I've got the equipment to do it properly, so I think the safest option is to take the keyboard connector off, take them jacks off, change the capacitors, and then reinstate them parts. Right, we may as well make a start, and we'll what we'll do is we'll preheat the board a little bit round here, warm the whole board up before we actually go in and start lifting off these components. And one thing I do just want to double check before we take these components off is just check the silk screen on the board, and just make sure that the silk screen actually does line up with the way the capacitors are. So in these surface mount electrolytics, the black end there is your negative, the end with the printing on there is your positive, and we just want to check that indeed, yeah, that does line up with the plus silk screen on the board. We'll just check every one, because sometimes boards, the silk screen gets printed wrong, even though the capacitors have actually been put right on the board. Sometimes, in some occasions, it's actually the opposite way around, and they get misplaced on the board. There's a few instances of that over the years. But yeah, that one's correct. We'll check over here. That one's correct. You can see a plus there, and that's the positive side of that capacitor. And that one's, yeah, we've got a plus there, that's the positive side of that capacitor there. So we've no worries just taking all them three capacitors off in one, and we know that the silk screen's correct to actually put the new capacitors on there. So we'll get my hot air. Now I've got this set. Let's see what when we get it up to temperature. I've got this around the 400 mark. Unfortunately, yeah, there's one issue we're going to have is my hot air station doesn't. Well, my overhead LED lights don't like my hot air station for some reason, and whenever I run my hot air station, they start to strobe. I may actually have to switch them off. Let's just see how dark it goes if I do turn them off. Hopefully that's still going to be seeable for you. I can see okay. It's basically the flickering was affecting me. I do suffer from migraines, and I don't want to risk bringing on a migraine with that flickering. But before we actually go in to lift the components off, basically what I'm doing is I'm just warming that entire part of the board up. Now fortunately around here there's nothing that we're going to really melt, so we don't have to really screen anything off. We've just got to, basically we're just warming the whole board up, because we don't want a thermal shock the board just by heating like where one component is in place, because you do risk warping and damaging the board. That should be about enough enough warm up, so we can start. We'll just place some heat either side of this capacitor, and we'll start with this capacitor first. There we go, that's the first one off. That come off nice and easy. We'll start over here. There we go, that one's off. And the last one round here. And that one's off. Right, we'll just take the desoldering station away like that. And that does absolutely reek. That stinks. They were definitely leaking. Don't think that first one I took off was particularly leaky, but when I attacked those two there, that absolutely stinks. That really does stink horribly. But we got all them off without causing oh, that does stink, without causing any damage at all there. We haven't lost any pads or anything like that. I think we may have very slightly nudged a yes, we have. We've very slightly nudged a couple of components out of place. That's a little bit annoying. Easy enough to fix. It's not a problem to fix, but we've just knocked a capacitor and a resistor slightly out of alignment there. I think it was as that first component come off, instead of me lifting it straight up like that, I slid it slightly and knocked it into those two components there. But fortunately, what we'll do is we'll add a dab of flux in that area, and we will just reposition those two components. So it's not. Let's get this. I've got a new flux pen and it's a bit stiff, the spring in it, from when you put it down. I'll have to just work it a bit. It's probably just because it's new. Right, we're in here, and it's that capacitor there and that resistor there that we just need to replace back into position. So let's get the hot air out again. There we go. It's in back in place. This one. Oops. Get that again. I've turned it upside down and I just need to flick it back over. There we go. And we will stick him back where he should go. They had it down. Just hold that for a second. And then we can just finally reheat it with the hot air, just to make sure it's there we go. That's soldered back in place. That was a little bit of a mistake of mine, but easily fixed. Right. What we will do is we'll just let the board cool down for a. We'll let the board cool down for a minute, because obviously we've got that part of the board quite warm there. Then we can go in and do a little bit of a clean up, because I can see it's pretty manky in there with the. It's pretty manky in there with all the old electrolyte. So what we'll do is we'll go in probably with a little bit of vinegar, just help neutralise any of the alkali that's come out of that them electrolytic capacitors. So I'm pretty certain it is alkali that's actually in them. We can then go in with a bit of isopropyl, clean that up as well. Once we've cleaned all that up, we can clean these pads up where we took the old capacitors off, and we can put the new capacitors in place, and that part of the board there should be done, and obviously we can then move on up to this part of the board here. So we're getting ever so further close to the really horrible bit that we're going to have round there. Although these aren't going to be that much fun round there either. Right, so oh, that really does stink. It was a rather horrible smelly one, that. Right, we've got where's my fiberglass pen? We're going to need that, I think, to do some of the clean-up on there. And if I done with my little toothbrush in my toolbox, which I'll put something on. There we go. I should have my little toothbrush in here. Where's it gone? I don't know where tools go. Some of these, sometimes, you know, you put them all back in your box, and then you come to get them again, and it's not bloody there. Where's my other brush? Ooh. I have multiple brushes, you know, that I use for cleaning circuit boards, but they seem to have disappeared as soon as I need them. No, not in there. There's usually a spare one in one of these pots here, but that seems to have gone. Sorry folks, I'm just going to pause the video while I go and see if I can find a little brush for just cleaning up there, so back in a sec. Okay, we're back, and I found a good old toothbrush, so we can at least give a good clean to this part of the board here. Let's get my anti-static strap back on. We'll have a good inspection of the board. It does look rather manky around there. Reflow work around there looks okay though, I'm not too worried about that. Like I said, what we need to do is just clean that area. I'm going to use a little bit of vinegar first, just on a Q-tip, just to go around that IC, and then I might go in with the old fiberglass pen as well. Around here. This is really manky around this this IC. Just cleaning off quite nicely actually. I think basically the heat from the hot air has baked the electrolyte, and it's actually made it quite easy to remove. I do hope this new camera is going to work out for this overhead stuff, and I'm not just made a right mess of this video. But hopefully, like I said, you'll be able to see a little bit more of what I'm doing here. That looks better already. We'll go in with a bit of isopropyl on the toothbrush and have a little bit of a scrub around that area. Yeah, most of that crud on that chip's coming off. Let's go in with a Q-tip. A bit of a clean. Yeah, it's coming quite nice and clean around there. not bad at all. I don't do all that much stuff with surface mount. I tend to, most of the stuff I play with tends to be through hole stuff. So, and I have been guilty when working on, you know, like 1200s and 600s before doing cap jobs to actually stick through hole caps on. I mean, it was quite a common way of doing it a few years ago, but now it's frowned upon. You know, the people really want to see the a proper. Have I lost a pad there, or is it just really tarnished? I'm not sure. I'm going with the fiberglass and just see whether that'll clean up. We might have lost a pad there. Oh, I don't know. Oh no. No, it was just really, really tarnished. That's cleaning up nicely then. Yeah, look at that pad there. I thought we'd actually, because it was like grey, I thought we'd actually lost the pad. But no, the pad's actually fine. I'll go over these with a bit of solder braid and just clean them up. That one there is really nice actually. I don't think that capacitor had actually leaked. Those two definitely had leaked because they absolutely stunk when I got them off. Let's see if we can clean up some of this. Oh, that's looking better. It's a really good technique, this actually, with the little fiberglass pen. You know, so it's not something that I've come up with, it's something I picked up off Gadget UK, using a little fiberglass pen to clean, you know, to clean IC legs up like this on the board when they've been capacitor leakage and battery leakage around them. I mean, they look like new now. Let's try this side as well. Those have really, really, really come up nicely. Yeah, there's no sign of any damage around there now. And they were looking really, you know, quite dull and manky. There's a bit of corrosion around some of these components here. We might as well, while we're in here with the fiberglass pen, let's see what we can do. They're coming up okay. Right, yeah, they've come up quite nicely right now. Where's my flux? I'm going to add some. No, I'm not impressed with this flux pen. I think I might have to get another one. It's that no, I've made a mistake as well. It's that no clean stuff, and I much prefer the proper old-fashioned flux, I must admit. Right, where's my solder wick? I've got a little bit of solder wick. And I'm just going to wick over those. I'm going to wick over those pads with a little bit of solder wick. And you see what I'm. Hopefully you can see what I'm working on there. Yeah, you should be able to see what I'm working on there. Right. Get the soldering iron, and I've got some of my. I don't have very much of this solder left. I have this one bobbin. It's a. You can see there, it's very old. It's probably from the 1960s. You know, lead tin solder. It's very, very fine, and it's got a very, very, very good flux in it. And it's great for working on stuff like this. I'm just going to add a little bit of fresh solder to all these pads before I wick them. There we go. Then we'll go in with a bit of solder braid, and we just want to clean those up. We don't want too much solder on them. I'm just trying to get rid of any old contaminated solder that might still be on there. Just leave a little bit of, basically we just want to leave a little bit of solder behind. There we go. We want that little bit of solder on there so we've actually got something to for the new component to solder down, bed down onto. But we don't want too much, and like I said, we want to see if we can just get rid of any old contaminated solder that's on there. There we go, that should do. Just switch that up ever so slightly. There we go, there, perfect. Just do that one there now. A little bit hot to touch that. Just go in. There we go. And the last one. Should be fine. There we go. So that's those 4 pads ready to receive their new capacitors. So let's figure out which capacitors those are. So we have got C383, we have C384, and we have, now what's this one? It's 612. I think it should be. Well, we can figure it out actually. In fact, tell you what we can do. We'll take the old capacitor and we'll look what value it is. That's the easiest way of figuring out what it is. It is a 10 UF at 35 volts. Right, no problem. So let's have a look at the new capacitors. So we have a D's, which is 10 UF. And that is, what does it tell us they are? There's C214, C305, C321, C460. So let's have a look around there, see if we can see one of those numbers. Well, I can't actually, but I can. Yeah, we know it's a 10 UF capacitor, so that's not really going to be a problem, is it? So let's get one of these 10 UFs out. We'll get that on the board first. We'll do this one first. Okay, that's the first new one out. We've got our new capacitor there. Oops, sorry. Right, so there's our new one, and it has to go on that way around like that. And now we could put this on with hot air, but I'm not going to. I am going to put it on with a soldering iron, just because I find it a lot easier to install capacitors like that than I do install them using hot air. I mean, if it's something like a ceramic capacitor or a resistor or something, obviously hot air is quite light. You just saw me put the components back on with. But when it's a capacitor like this, I just find it so much easier to do it with a good old-fashioned soldering iron. And get the end of the iron nice and clean. We'll get it tinned up. Could really do with a finer point on this iron. I've got to. It's a good iron, but I do find this is the finest soldering bit of the iron bit I've got for it, and I do find it a little bit on the large side for work like this. It's doable, but I'll have to look for perhaps some smaller bit for it. Put that in place. I'm just going to tack one side there. That's tacked in place. We'll have a look at the other side to make sure we can see the connection. We can. And we can just go in and solder that side. Hopefully I can get in here to get this. And I'm not going to block the shot too badly while I do it, but I'm more concerned about getting a nice solder joint than the shot, to be fair. Right, I've got a really nice joint on that side. I just want to go in and just touch this side up. There we go. And that's the new capacitor in place. I'm quite pleased with that. That's gone in quite nice and tidily. Right, let's put these two capacitors in. And then I think the safest thing to do is just give the board a quick test and make sure the board's still booting up, and then we can move on to the next part. Right, so what have we got there? We've got C384 and C383, I think. So let's just have a quick look on the sheet they give us, and that tells us that I can't see them on there. 304, 303. Oh, so is that an O, not an 8? Oh, right. So, right, so it's C304 and 303, sorry, not 384 and 383. They're E5, so E, and there's 5 of them. So those are those ones. Now, these are very slightly small, are they? Yeah, the new components are actually very slightly smaller than the originals. They're both 22 UF at 25 volts, and this is just what happens. You know, parts get smaller over time. Hopefully, we won't have too much of a problem fitting them. You can sometimes have issues when components have got significantly smaller than the original, actually getting them to neatly fit. But we'll see. So we need 2 of these. That's 1. That's 2. Right. Hopefully I'm not going to knock this out of shot either. Because one thing I have just realised about this sodding camera that I'm using for the overhead shot is that the display keeps going off on it. I don't know whether there's something I can do about that or not, but watch me do all this and this image turn out to be absolutely useless, but it's a try, you know. I'm seeing if I can improve my videography a little bit. That was a long word for me, weren't it, videographer? Right, so we've got the first of these, which I think I'm going to install there. Oops. Without firing it across the board. Now we've got a positive on that side, so it definitely goes in that way around like that. Let's get the soldering iron in place. Pick you up. Okay, that's just tacked into place for the moment while we'll solder the other side properly, and then we'll come back round and just tidy that side up. Come in here and just make sure that's slightly out, but it's close enough to get a good solder joint on it. Let's just go in. Okay, that's connected, and then we can just go back round and just touch that one in again. make that look a little bit neater. There we go, I'm happier with that. So that's that new component in place. Yep, that's nice and tight. We've got our last one in this part of the board to go back in, which is this one here. We'll pick him up and we'll place him in place. Oops. Okay, we've got that end, that side there just tacked in, so we'll have to go in and re-solder that one. But we will solder it on this side here, like that, and then we'll just go back in and we'll just touch that solder on that side back up because it was a little on the rough side, like that. There we go, that's better. And he's nice and happy and home back in place. Right, what I think we will do now, shall we do them two first? Yeah, I think what we'll do them two. So we've got a through hole there to do, and we've got that surface mount there to do. Then we'll just give the board a quick test again, and we'll see where we are there. Right, so I mean there's no leakage around here at all, so I don't foresee any major problems. We'll whip him off first because we can do that with the hopefully you can see what I'm showing here. We'll whip him off first because we can do that with the desolder pump. We'll pull him off with the hot air, we'll stick that back on, and we'll stick a new cap in there, and like I said, then we'll just do a quick test of the board, make sure we've not caused any problems with doing the work we've done so far. Right, so let's get the board flipped over. Let's see if we can find out where that capacitor comes through, and it's right there. That's where he is. Let's get the desoldering station and we can get him off. Right. That's a ground plane on that side. I think we might have to add a little bit of new solder to that one, just see if we can help it out. Give it a little bit more time to heat. There we go, that got it. We'll just give him another quick. That's it, that's nice and free. Right, we can whip the board back over, and that capacitor should be ready to literally just lift out with the board. He's virtually out, that side's out. Just be a bit careful. There we go, lifted out. There's absolutely no sign of leakage on that whatsoever. That's 470 at 16 volts. So to be honest, like I say, it's probably an absolutely perfectly good capacitor, but seeing as we're doing a full recap on it, I'll probably actually just stick that to one side because it might be a handy one to keep. Just for when I'm playing about. Like I said, I can't see there be anything at all wrong with that. We'll check its ESR anyway. Right, we will whip off that little surface mount there now, and then we will let's see. Hopefully we can get you. Hopefully I can have you in shot. You probably didn't see any of that. It's quite difficult when you're working with two cameras, especially when you can't really see the viewfinders on them. I do hope this video is going to be usable off the the second camera. Otherwise it's going to be a bit of a boring video just off the one wide shot that I've got at the back. And we'll do like we did before, and we're just going to basically warm the whole area, just being careful and mindful not to knock anything off the board. I've not got my airflow set to too hot. In fact, I might just knock it down a little touch, and that'll negate the risk of me moving any components like we did on the other one. So we did shift a component, a couple of a capacitor and a resistor, but fortunately it was easy enough to put them back where they needed to go. We'll just warm the whole area where we're going to remove the capacitor before we actually go in to start taking the capacitor off. Going to start focusing a little bit more heat down on where the actual capacitor is. There we go, and he's off. Right. So fortunately, I don't think there was any leakage around that one. We're just changing it as a matter of course. We'll just let the board no, it's nice and shiny around there. So there's no fishy smell from removing that capacitor. In fact, that's come off super clean. There's not even any gack or muck on them pads. We can literally just put the new capacitor straight on there. Really is clean. Yeah, we're absolutely fine just to stick the new capacitor straight on there. There's not even any flux residue or anything around taking the old one off. So what opponent is that? That is C305. C3, that's a D. That's another in fact we can just double check it, can't we? Should be another 10 UF in it is. So we'll get one of these 10 UFs out. Where's my tweezers gone? Come on, tweezers. There they are. Let's just make sure we keep all our removed capacitors in one place, and we might do a little ESR test on them. Not in this video, but we'll do another perhaps little video on them doing an ESR test on them capacitors. Right. Let's just get the new one on the board. Now, where has it come from there? Let's just make sure it's the right way around, which is that way around, and it goes on like that. I'll get the iron. Let's get you in place. That's in place. It's a bit ugly on that side, but we'll tidy that up as soon as we've soldered this side properly. So we'll just go in here, heat the pad, so be careful not to touch the capacitor and melt it. There we go. A little bit too much on there, but that's fine. And then we'll just tidy this side up. There we go. Again, I've just perhaps got a little bit too much solder on there. There we go, that's better. That doesn't look bad now. Right, so that's all those components changed. I suppose we better just give the board a quick test now, just to make sure that it is still firing up and happy. We can fire it up in this configuration. We'll just connect it up to the monitor. Just quickly find a phono to phono lead. It's a bit of a crappy one, but it'll do. I'll just get you up on the screen so we can just double. You have to excuse my other camera there, but this is just a quick check. Okay, just want to make sure that the board is. We've not done anything daft to the board while we did that. Can't see it. They look. The work looks fairly decent there. The capacitors are nicely in place. Right. We need power, which we've got here. Plug that in like that. We've got the bare board there. Let's switch the monitor on. That should be set right. That should work. So if we switch on the Amiga board, and let's hopefully on the white screen, hopefully keep your fingers crossed that we get something there we go. So at least we've not done any irreparable damage so far. I mean, if you are, if it's the first board like this that you have worked on, and don't just work on a board like this as your first project, work on some scrap first until you get at least a little bit of confidence in what you're doing. But it is a good idea, especially if you're not incredibly au fait with the board, to just do like I've just done, do a little bit of work and just plug it back in basically, and just make sure that the board is actually still going to work, it's still actually going to do something. Right, now how far up are we on now? So we've done all that side of the board down there. Those don't look like they're going to be too hard. They'll be nice and easy to do. There's a little bit of corrosion around them, but it's not terrible. In fact, let's just whip that 470 back in there. It was a 470 we whipped out, weren't it? Yeah, again, the new capacitor is a little bit smaller than the old one, but that's not, like I said, that's just progress. But 470 at 16 volts. We'll make sure we put it in the right way around, so negative that way. We'll put the new component in. So one problem with them being slightly smaller is the lead spacing's not perfect to what the old originals were. It's close enough, but it isn't absolutely the same as what it used to be with the older, bigger capacitor. Even though electrically it's identical. That's that side done. That side done. That's the new capacitor in place. Now, where's my side cutters? Snip that. There we go. Cut them nice and tight to the board. Okay. So that is that capacitor replaced, and all the electrolytics in that area replaced. So we're basically we're over here now. Right, so we're in this area now. We're going to do those two, and then we'll move on to the really nasty area that we've got, which is this. Basically this area here. This is where all the most of the damage is basically. There's a lot of components around here that have suffered from the electrolyte. I'm a bit worried about tracers and tracks around that, and pads basically around that area, but yeah, we will concentrate on this this area here. Really annoying thing I found with this camera is that the fact that the viewfinder keeps going off on it, so I can't actually see and point where I'm pointing. I'm going to have to, if I decide to use this camera for other stuff, like I said, obviously I'm going to have to come up with something else. Yeah, it's annoying. Right, let's get them two buggers off there. So we're going to leave them ones until the very last ones we do, because we're going to have to take that off. We're going to have to take them off. Because I'm not prepared to bodge it like I've seen other people do. We will have to be a little bit careful around here as well, because really what I should be doing is I should be shielding that off with some Captain Tape. In fact, can we cheat ever so slightly? Yeah, we can. Not Captain Tape or anything, but anything's better than nothing. If I put that bit of printed circuit board there, it'll just act as a bit of a heat, basically a heat stop, and I don't want to risk melting that keyboard connector. That'd be that'd be nasty. So we're going, oh, the stench. We're going to do what we did before, and basically we're just going to warm the whole area before we actually start trying to take them capacitors off. So just it's to heat up the whole area, so we're not causing a real hot spot on the board. And then we can go in and we can start heating a bit closer to where these two components are, and we can get them off. There we go, that's the first one off. And that's the second one off. Yeah. And the smell from them is absolutely horrific. Those absolutely stink, those two capacitors. So again, we'll let the board just cool down a little bit before we go any further. And we've removed that. As you can see, we've not done any damage to the keyboard. I mean, I could have taken that off now. In hindsight, we should have got the desoldering pump out, and we should have whipped them off, and we could have done that whole area in one, and then we wouldn't have had to risk doing any damage to that. But like I said, we got away with it. We've got away with it. Yeah. Oh, the smell around there is horrific. It's horrible. I'm going to go in with a bit of vinegar, and we'll go around that area with some vinegar, and then once we've done that, we will look. We will go in with some isopropyl. We'll clean that up again with isopropyl. Then we might just visit a couple of these ICs around here, perhaps with the fiberglass pen, and just make sure that they're the legs are nice and clean on them. So I'll put a little bit of vinegar on a Q-tip, and we'll start just a really gentle. So, cause if it is an alkali, well, look at that. If it is an alkali, the vinegar will help neutralise it. If anyone knows, is the electrolyte in the surface mount electrolytics acidic or alkalic or an alkali? With the fact it stinks of bad fish, it made me think it is probably an alkali. Because I think I remember, I'm going back nearly 30 years now, but I think I remember from secondary school chemistry when I was in the first year, them saying about acids are sweet and alkalis are like sour and fishy. And I think that was if you swallowed them. I'll go and get some more, another Q-tip. Oh, the smell of that is horrible. I think I need a fume extractor. When I finally get my new studio built, which is, I've got some real plans for a new place. I have got the space to do it. it's finding funds and some energy to actually put it into practice. But it would mean I had a proper room for doing a lot of this stuff, with proper studio lighting and some better benches. Like I said, I've got the space. What I need is to save some money up and have the energy to actually do the project. It's quite a lot of work. It's, you know, plasterboarding walls and ceilings and getting them skimmed and various other things. There's some wiring work which I'll have to do. Fortunately, that's something I can do myself. There's some plumbing work again. Fortunately, that's something I can do. Right. I think that's good enough with the vinegar. We'll get a bit of IPA on my toothbrush and we'll just go over it with that. That looked quite nasty before, and it's come quite clean now. That don't look bad at all. And that IC there, U32, looked really quite a bit grim, where it had borne the brunt from the leak from them capacitors. But that's actually nice, and that's come up. Have a bit of a clean up in there while we're in there. Get rid of some of this fluff. This is a fluffy Amiga, this one. Get a bit of that out of there just while we're in here. So we'll be working on that part later on. Just want to get this part over here nice and clean so we can put those capacitors in there, and then so that we can work on the horror area around there next. And that really is a horror area. Right, so I'm reasonably happy with that. And so I'm going to add. Where's my nice solder gone? There it is. So the only way I can get the image back up on the viewfinder on this stupid camera is to just touch something on the camera, and that obviously it makes the camera jump. But right, as you can see, all I'm going to do, I'm going to add a little bit of fresh solder to those pads, and then I'm going to wick it away. So we'll go in, add a tiny touch of fresh solder. Like that, and then we'll go in with the solder braid. In fact, where's my solder braid? There's my solder braid. We'll go in with the solder braid and we'll just wick that off. It'll just get any impurities off the board before we'll then, like I said, we'll make sure there's just enough solder on there to help us put the new capacitors in place. I'm just going to add a little bit of extra flux to my solder braid, make it just that little bit more workable. Okay, if we go in, we'll just have a quick dab on there. There we go. There we go. That's those. They look pretty perfect. I'm quite pleased with them. Right, so we need some new capacitors to go in there. And what do we need? We need C821 and C822. So we'll look over here. They are number H. So those are those two little capacitors there. And those are what go in them positions. Fortunately, they're both pointing the same direction. Let's get, where's my tweezers? you know what, I've just thought how long this video has actually been running now, and what I might actually end up having to do is make this a two-parter, because I'm running out of room on my camera to actually do this. So what I think we'll very quickly get these two capacitors on board, and then I think I'm going to stop this one, and we will do a part 2 where we tackle that really nasty area over there, and we tackle near the keyboard connector. So we'll finish off by putting these two components back on. Where's my solder? There we go. So we'll do that one. These are both exactly the same value, so it doesn't matter which one we do first. That's that one in position. Pick up the other one. Him into position, hold him down, just solder that side. Right, you can just spin it round, solder the other side. We'll just quickly solder the other side. And then we can solder that other side again properly, so we just go in. A little bit of solder on there, a little bit of solder on there, then we can spin it back round again. And we can just tidy up them first two little solder points there. And there. Right, okay, there we go. And just as a quick last thing to do, I'll quickly just connect it back up to the power. We'll do a quick final test, and we will call it good for this part 1 of the video. And then we will, like I said, we'll have a part 2 where we actually do the rest of the capacitors, sort that out. And like I said, we're going to have to take the keyboard connector and the audio jack off, just to do a decent job on that. Like I said, right, let's switch that on. Let's just make sure that the board still powers up after we've done that. We've got our screen. I think hopefully we'll get the Amiga insert disc to come up any second. I think it does take a bit of it. There we go. It does take a bit longer if you haven't got a disk drive or anything to connect it to it, because I think it's looking for things. But anyway, there we go. We can see we've got about halfway through this. We've done all the capacitors. Let's get it down. So basically, we've done all the capacitors on this side. We've done those two capacitors there. So we've just got that horror story in that corner there to attack. And then we've got to attack those two that are between the keyboard connector and the audio outputs there. And we'll do that by actually removing the keyboard connector and the audio outputs. We may actually do that one and then that. I don't know which one of them we're going to do next, but we'll do that in the next video to this. So thanks for watching, and hope you get the next one. So thanks for watching, and goodbye.